For more than a century, big cities represented the ultimate destination. If you wanted opportunity, you moved to the city. If you wanted a career, you moved to the city. If you wanted to build a future, the city was where everything happened. New York, Los Angeles, London, Paris, Tokyo. For decades, these places attracted millions of young people chasing the same dream: better jobs, higher salaries, more opportunities, more connections, more life. But something unexpected has started happening. Across the United States and many other developed countries, young people are quietly leaving big cities, not just moving to different neighborhoods, leaving entirely. And in many cases, they're not coming back. Cities that spent decades growing as economic magnets are now seeing a steady outflow of younger residents. In New York City alone, hundreds of thousands of people moved away in recent years. San Francisco has seen similar patterns, so has Los Angeles. And this isn't just happening in America. London has seen an increase in young professionals relocating outside the city. Paris is experiencing the same shift. Even Tokyo, one of the most densely populated cities in the world, has started to see population changes that experts once thought were unlikely. For decades, urbanization defined modern life. People moved from smaller towns to larger cities because that's where the opportunities were. But now, something has changed. For a growing number of young adults, big cities no longer represent freedom or opportunity. Instead, they're starting to feel like something else: pressure, expense, instability, and sometimes even limitation. What makes this shift so surprising is that cities were once considered essential for building a career. If you wanted to work in finance, you went to New York. If you wanted to work in technology, you went to San Francisco. If you wanted to work in media, entertainment, fashion, or finance, cities were the center of everything. But today, many young professionals are beginning to ask a question that would have sounded strange just a decade ago. Do I actually need to live in a big city anymore? Because the answer to that question is slowly starting to reshape where an entire generation chooses to live. And the forces driving this change go far deeper than most people realize. To understand why millions of young people are leaving big cities, we need to start with the factor that has quietly transformed urban life more than anything else: the cost of simply existing there. For many young adults today, the biggest problem with big cities is surprisingly simple. They have become incredibly expensive. For decades, living in a major city came with higher costs, but those costs were usually balanced by higher salaries and more opportunities. The trade-off made sense. You paid more to live there, but you also earned more. Today, that balance is starting to break down. In cities like New York, San Francisco, and London, housing prices have increased dramatically over the past 2 decades. In many cases, rents have grown far faster than wages. A small apartment that might have been affordable for a young professional 20 years ago can now consume more than half of someone's monthly income. For many people, buying a home in these cities has become almost impossible. In San Francisco, the median home price has surpassed $1 million. In New York City, even small apartments can cost hundreds of thousands. And in places like London, young workers often spend years saving just to afford a down payment. Housing is only part of the problem. Daily life in big cities is also becoming more expensive. Transportation, food, utilities, healthcare, and taxes all add pressure to already stretched budgets. Even simple activities that once made city life exciting, restaurants, entertainment, nightlife, now come with price tags that many young adults simply cannot justify anymore. As a result, many people find themselves asking a difficult question. If most of my income goes toward rent and basic expenses, what exactly am I gaining from living here? For some, the answer is networking and career growth. But for others, the reality begins to look very different. They work long hours, pay extremely high rent, and still struggle to save money. At the end of the month, there is little left for investing, buying property, or building financial security.
In other words, the city that once promised opportunity can start to feel like a financial trap. And once that realization sets in, many people begin to consider alternatives: smaller cities, suburbs, even rural areas. Places where housing is cheaper, life moves slower, and money stretches much further. But rising costs alone do not fully explain why so many young people are leaving big cities, because something else has changed in recent years, something that has completely transformed the relationship between work and location: remote work.
For decades, living in a big city was not just a lifestyle choice, it was a requirement. If you wanted to work at a major company, you had to live close to the office. Finance jobs were in New York. Technology jobs were in Silicon Valley. Media and entertainment were centered in Los Angeles. Entire industries were geographically concentrated, and millions of people moved to those places simply because that's where the jobs were. But over the last few years, that reality has started to change dramatically. Remote work has fundamentally altered the relationship between work and location. Before the pandemic, working from home was often treated as a rare privilege or a temporary arrangement. Many companies resisted it. Managers believed productivity would fall, collaboration would suffer, and company culture would disappear. Then, something unexpected happened. When millions of workers suddenly had to work from home, many companies discovered that productivity did not collapse. In many cases, it actually improved. Meetings moved online, teams collaborated digitally, and employees proved that many jobs could be done from anywhere with an internet connection. Once that door opened, it became very difficult to close. Today, thousands of companies offer fully remote positions or hybrid work models. For young professionals, this has completely changed the equation. If your job can be done from a laptop, the question becomes obvious: why live in one of the most expensive cities in the world? Why spend thousands of dollars every month on rent for a small apartment when the same job could be done from a quieter, cheaper, and more comfortable place? For many people, the answer is clear: they leave. Instead of paying $3,000 for a small apartment in a crowded city, they move to a smaller town where that same money can pay for an entire house. Instead of long commutes, crowded public transportation, and constant noise, they gain space, time, and flexibility. And once people experience that kind of freedom, returning to city life becomes much less appealing. But even remote work is only part of the story, because another powerful shift is happening at the same time. Young people are beginning to question something that previous generations rarely challenged: the idea that success must be built inside big cities. For a long time, success followed a very predictable script. Move to a big city, work hard, climb the career ladder, and eventually build a stable life. That path shaped how entire generations thought about adulthood. Cities were seen as the center of ambition, the place where careers were built, businesses were launched, and opportunities multiplied. But younger generations are beginning to rethink that assumption. Many of them watched their parents move to expensive cities, work long hours, and spend decades chasing financial stability. They saw the trade-offs: small apartments, long commutes, rising costs, constant pressure to keep up with the pace of urban life. And now they're asking a simple question: is that lifestyle actually worth it? For some people, the answer is still yes. Cities offer energy, culture, diversity, and opportunities that smaller places cannot easily replicate. But for many others, the balance is starting to shift. Quality of life is becoming more important than proximity to corporate offices. Space is becoming more valuable than location. Flexibility is becoming more valuable than prestige. Instead of measuring success by living in the most expensive cities, many young adults are beginning to prioritize something different: freedom. The freedom to work from anywhere. The freedom to afford housing without sacrificing most of their income. The freedom to design a lifestyle that does not revolve entirely around career pressure.
And when those priorities change, big cities begin to lose some of their traditional advantages. This does not mean cities are disappearing. They will likely remain cultural and economic centers for decades to come. But the idea that everyone must move to a big city to succeed may be fading. For the first time in generations, millions of young people are discovering that opportunity is no longer tied to a specific location. And that realization is quietly reshaping how an entire generation chooses to live. Now, I'm curious to hear from you. If your job allowed you to work from anywhere, would you choose to live in a big city or somewhere else? Let me know in the comments.